Welcome back, everybody, to a new product sense for this. Should have been last week. It's for this week. And then we're going to record another one tomorrow and then another one after that. So we'll be back in sync.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Sense and Sensibility podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad,
And the unnecessary products we come across every day as moderators on Steam Hunt, a Steam blockchain-based product hunting site.
I'm Dalio.
And I'm Team Humble. Let's get started. Yeah.
Hi there.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm okay.
Hey, how you doing? Sorry I can't get through. Yeah, so big upheaval this week, really. A bit of a change around in that I kind of hit a wall with doing the daily things just in general, like and it was good time, really. It got to like 2 or 3 months into being a mod on the service on steamhunt.com. Lots of changes going on there. Constantly the algorithms being updated. Mm-hmm. Like there's stuff happening with partners behind the scenes. Like it's maturing fast, real fast. And I noticed something that I wasn't happy with things that we were working on is that although there's a community on Steam Hunt, there is like there's fragments of people, obviously, because we're all decentralized the way we work, we operate and submit stuff. But I realized that there wasn't a lot of value in just doing the top 10 things that I liked across the chain. I mean, maybe a little bit of value if you couldn't be bothered to go through hundreds per day and just be like, oh, what did Phil find? But I realized that I was getting bored of that. I was getting bored of doing the linear step through. I'm going to record this. And I'd also watched a couple of videos for people on DTube who were like, oh, people are coming in here and just getting like a payout for DTube videos and yada, yada. And I had to stop and think, okay, so what value am I getting out of it? What value am I putting out of it? And I realized that one thing I've always had a bit of a bee in my bonnet about is that we don't really have like an everyday or every week promotional channel where we see or we're constantly reminded of sustainability, environmental products. Like we occasionally come across them or they'll come up on Steam Hunt, and every conversation that me and you had was like, oh, did you see this? This is kind of cool. Like when we move in the van, we should get one of these. And it made me realize that we need to completely restructure what we were doing. Instead of it being like, this is good, this is a bad thing, this is strange. I think that's actually, it only has so much reach. And actually, if you don't have that communicative vibe, then people can take that the wrong way. So instead, I was thinking, why don't we flip Product Sense on its head to get back to the roots, the true nature of what we were really thinking about when we set it up, which was, you know, the reason why we put Product Sense under Sense and Sustainability, Sense and Sustainability. Yeah. The reason why we put it underneath that was that we care about certain products that are out there in the ecosystem. There's like products that are mass produced and hope that they sell hundreds of thousands of. And then there's products that like are so unique, or like somebody's decided, all right, if we're going to stop producing a certain type of bad food container, for instance, like how do we make a like bamboo one? Like what's the process? What's the things involved? And I realized in the midst of all that and from the last 3 or 4 months is that there's so much stuff out there in the world that it was actually suffocating me, that little bits and bobs of drones and little bits of plastic and stuff. Yeah. It was getting to me. I don't know if things have been getting to you on the platform.
But I think because you have to think about how many mods do we have? 6 or 7. There's 200, usually 200 something posts a day on average. I think like what the average mod will do between 30 and 40 or 20 and 40 posts a day that you're going through that resets every 24 hours. So when you not only are seeing them on a daily basis because you're modding them, and you're just constantly going down the list and looking down the list, but just times, and we've been doing it for 3 or 4 months now. It gets to be a lot, and it gets to be overwhelming, I think is like the right word. And it makes me very aware of how much is being made, how much is being manufactured, and like where do we have room?
Yeah,
Like where is it going?
that's
Everything
exactly
has
where
to
I
go
was.
somewhere. Like
Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head. Like that was the thing. It was suffocating I think it was because I'm a ground sign. I'm
yeah,
like, where the fuck is all this stuff? Like, really? People. I went and had some food the other week, and I remember, I think it was last week actually, and somebody asked Ella, like, oh, did you go trick or treating or whatever? And I could see that this woman was like upset that I hadn't taken her out, or her mum hadn't taken her out, like door to door. It's not something that she has done it before, but like it's not always able to happen. But it got me really kind of riled up about the fact that, well, maybe I have views on, the whole like commercialization of the plastic crap that you see
sure.
for like a week in the shops to do with Halloween and stuff like that. And I think I just got to a point where I was like, I can't talk about stuff, even though it's cool and it's interesting and it'd be cool to own one, if I'm really, really, really being true to myself.
Right.
Like,
And I
I'm
think we
just
said
buying
it
an
like
idea.
the
I'm
very,
buying into
very
an idea,
first,
right?
the very first
And
episode, or maybe the second episode. Like, my thing is like, does this item in existence, does the fact that this exists make the world a better place or a worse place? Like that and I know that seems very like abstract, and that could be argued ad nauseum. Um, because what is better for you might not be better for me, and what if blah blah blah, like, but for me, I kind of just try to drill it down to like, okay, what is this thing? Can we, like, is the cost of having 150,000 of them in a landfill some way, are we getting back the return on the tax that we're putting on the environment? Or is this severely helping people? Like, it's difficult for me because a lot of medical devices and a lot of like these things that are helping people in terms of accessibility, in terms of helping people with disabilities, they're all made from plastic. They're not eco. Do they make the world a better place? Yeah, I think in some ways. They wouldn't be consumed at the same rate as like the Halloween stuff you're talking about in stores, but it's like a very complex like push and pull, I think. And that's what you and I think are always trying to like, that's what we're always trying to discuss
yeah, sure.
and discover. And it's, for me, it's a constant introspection thing that I'm trying to like look at myself and be like, okay, what kind of stuff am I sharing? Does this make the world a better place? But like ultimately, I think with the technology that we have, there's becoming less and less of an excuse to not use sustainable materials than there ever was. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the technology's not out there. It's not like there are people who are doing these things successfully. And and it kind of just comes down to like it's what we're choosing to do because of speed or price, or is it because what's driving our purchases? Like, if and to me, like, when you go back to Steam Hunt, if everything in the top 10, let's not even bring the top 10 into it, but if everything on Steam Hunt that gets posted every day got purchased every day, like, what is, I don't know if that, a lot of that stuff makes sense from, a perspective of us being around for the next 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. You know what I mean? It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the overwhelming thing for me anyway, was like, after 3 months of that, day to day to day to day, like just seeing the sheer volume of it. And even from a perspective of like, oh, somebody's hunted a drone, here's another drone, here's another drone, here's another drone. It was like, not that people were either sharing
Right.
the links to websites or things like that. The fact that there was that many different styles of drones on one site, like, volume. I think I just had a real like bee in my bonnet of like, fuck me, we have so much trash in the world. We have so much trash that exists and is being continually made because we're buying it because we've seen a video on YouTube of somebody flying a drone and doesn't that look cool? We should buy a drone. Oh, I can't afford a £500 drone. I'm only going to use it a little bit. I'll buy the £50 one and it'll last a couple of months. And then what? Like, does it sit on my shelf or does it go into the bin, or how does it get recycled? Is it costing more to recycle that thing? Are the parts reused? Like, there's so many questions for me. So recently I've been like, all right, I'm going to focus on things that if I'm going to minimize things in my life, if I'm going to literally strip it down to backpack kind of style, like get rid of all the plastic stuff that I have and start like flipping into like sustainable, like objects, not just purely to be like, oh, I'm doing my bit, but more so that I can apply that whole fundamental to my life. I think
Right.
think
Well,
it's way past just
that's what I
having
was
an
going to say,
ethic. I think
because
it's more
I think that
to
there are
do with
people
feeling
in
that
two
you're not
minds about
adding to
what
an
Steam Hunt
existing
is. And I'm
problem.
not
I
here to
hate that
define
feeling.
Steam Hunt, but at the end of the day, this is people, I could see the argument come up of people saying, well, what's the problem? I'm just sharing it on a digital site. Doesn't mean it's getting made, or it doesn't mean that I'm buying it. But at the end of the day, what we post on Steam Hunt is going out to an audience, both in Steam Hunt and on Steemit, thousands of people. Those things are in a sense being promoted. They're being shared. They're being, people are sharing them through social. And because of that, that is, you could remove yourself from the personal responsibility and say, like, what's the problem? I'm just posting it on my blog. Like, but what you're doing is you're advertising it, you're promoting it, you're sharing it. So, like, what type of things do I personally want what things do I want other people to be aware of out there in the world? Like, that's kind of what helps me decide what I want to hunt, because you're right. Like, you have a responsibility as a quote unquote advertiser, as an influencer, not within the context of our ecosystem influencer, but just in general. Somebody who's making things and sharing things on the internet, who has an audience of people. I think there's a heavy responsibility there to what you decide to promote, and what the ethics are behind that company, or what that product is. You're, even if you're not buying it yourself, are you kind of spreading the message of something that might not be helpful to society and the world and the oceans.
Mm. In some ways, like, the stuff's been made. A lot of it exists. I think I just got to the point where I was like, product sense as a podcast should be more useful in terms of what I would get excited about and what I'd get value from. And I realized there was a definite split for me, and that was that I don't know when it happened, but I am no longer, or I think I've gone through a shift or a change, that I'm not a product consumer like I used to be, right? I'm not buying stuff for
Right.
short-term entertainment or to have something because it's going to have a cool little quirk
other
to
than
my
food,
life.
the only thing that we buy is things for work and
auxiliary,
to make
like,
work better.
hobby, or
like, really, what do you and I buy
like,
in terms
you know
of,
what I
like,
mean? Like, and
consumption stuff? And that's fine. That's part of, that's part of our lifestyle that we've picked. But, like, I totally get you. I've
right,
seen that kind of change in myself, where it's like, maybe because
right.
we don't have the luxury of boredom anymore. I can't remember the last time I was bored and was like, oh man, I would love to do this or pick up that. Like,
Yeah, there's that.
mm-hmm.
But there's also like a shift for me from materialism of having stuff, but also in my head it's like, shit, well, I'm going to store this stuff. If I really truly want to have a decentralized work life balance, in terms of where I work, how long
That's
I work,
very true.
like, just the
so true.
Just the notion of, like, oh my god, I'm gonna have somewhere to store this.
Like,
that
like, on
thread
your
is running in the
space,
background for me. It's like, oh shit,
like,
do you know what I mean? It's like a product
for
that
everything that I buy.
it's
usually to replace something else, because I think you and I have both in different ways been through, like, the purge, the big purge of stuff. And I know that minimalism is, like, such a, like, trendy word right now, but I think we do kind of try to follow minimalist values, I guess. And when you're thinking in that way, it's like, yes, if I bring something in, then something's got to go out. Like, it's like a game. It's like, there's 25 slots in my inventory. If I want to pick this thing up, like, it's got to be replaced, because that's A, what you logistically have room for, and B, just what I'm willing to have, what I'm willing to own. And like you said, those threads in your mind, like, I know how much better I felt when I did the big purge and, like, got rid of so much stuff. Like, literally every item that I own to my name, fits in 2 plastic bins that can go in my car at literally any moment. And I remember the freedom and like the happiness that I felt once I got down to that. And I'm very greedy over that, over keeping that intact. So I guard that, you know, and it's like, oh, well, who cares? It's just this, it's just that. Like those little things just add up so, so much. So
But but it affords you other time, right? Because you've got that organized and it's like packed away and you know where everything is. It affords you it opens your eyes to other things in life. I think sometimes material stuff can be distraction.
yeah.
It can be, I know when in my 20s, when I had like loads of disposable income, I would buy frivolous stuff because I wanted it because it was cool or it looked cool in my room or whatever. And I just think the older I get, the more I read, the more I see, the more damage that I've been part of. Like, let's not be, you know, try and be some pariah about it. But like at the end of the day, since the early 70s, since I've been around like 40 odd years, like we've contributed to this overall problem, with our apathy, if you like, and consciously or unconsciously at times. And so, you know, I got to the point with this Product Sense Weekly where I was thinking, I don't just want to be like, I like these 10 things out of 200, because I think that's kind of dismissive as well. It's kind of like out of the hundreds or 200 things that are crappy or like I would never buy in a million years, these 10 things are kind of cool. Right. But there's an issue with something being cool, is that doesn't necessarily mean it has a longevity or you know, it's always going to have a value or a purpose. And so I think it came about because I was really trying to dig deep on legacy and craftsmanship and like family names, that we're moving faster and faster into a world which is like on demand, available, like doubling in size, in data size in 72 hours. Like it's always growing. It's always going bigger. Right. And yet all the other news is contrary to that says, you know, we've got a problem and we need to slow it down, or we need to reduce the temperature. And I'm not seeing any slowdown in any other areas. So it's cool to hunt products that you like, but I realized that I've got to the point in my life where I really want to double down on the things I want to talk about are the things that I think other people should be aware of in the world that exist and might not know exist, and might not know that they'll feel a certain way if they spend a bit more money, like because of the story, you know, because of the hand craftsmanship, because of the longevity of that device over another device. So yeah, I right, connectors. When the AI runs upon it, trust me, everybody's going to want to remember what purpose and legacy was and craftsmanship, instead of just like really some square little food pellet that you call lunch.
The go-to. I'm super down. Like, I think it's a good time to take it in that direction. I think it's a good antidote for us, for the way that we're feeling, you know, because I feel like, so we talk about this a lot on our other podcast, the Positively Negative podcast, but it's like, we're very good at like taking a frustration and being like, okay, so how can I interact with this frustration in a way that solves it for me, or helps me turn it around, or helps me like frame it in a way that I'm making things better instead of just being mad about it. Do you know what I mean? For sure.
Well, it was no. Yeah, there's no point in being frustrated about it. Like, I mean, it really is no point in being frustrated about it from a point of view of like, this doesn't serve me and I don't serve other people, being in that head state, right? So looking at what we were doing with the sort of good, bad and strange, like that has a certain amount of value because it's kind of incidental and funny and people get your opinions on how you think about things. But actually, I've carried this with me now probably a decade. I was always confused as why there wasn't like a TV channel that run 24/7 on satellite to do with green products. Like green and sustainability is almost like
because it's
got
a
this
fashion
weird
choice.
kind of
because
aura around it.
I think
That's
a lot
kind
of
of like, well, if you've
like
got the extra money, then you should buy that.
And
or
you'll see it like
becomes
with
a
a lot of the
talking point,
products
like, oh, you
that
spent the extra
are
money
like
and got the better
sustainable.
version.
They go
It's like,
into a very
and
like
it's almost like a dirty word.
Headspace, because it's actually the eco-ness of it or the greenness of it isn't enough to sell it on its own. So they kind of go into this very like upscale, high fashion, trendsetter aesthetic on the website or the product design. And like, while I appreciate good design, I don't think that a lot of times people buy eco products because they're eco solely. And maybe that's a good strategy. Maybe these companies are realizing, okay, well, we have to make it look a certain way for people to be on board. But I think you're right. Like, it's kind of always had this like fashionista upper class thing. It doesn't feel accessible for everybody at all times or affordable.
But we have a unique opportunity, I think, now is that we're well into the social storytelling narrative. Like, we're 3 or 4 years really into it. People getting sick of it. You've got clients and I've got clients that have certain products and services that they know they can demand a certain amount of money from maybe 4x times what it's actually worth. Maybe the cost is reflective of their R&D they put in it, or their distribution, or the packaging is expensive. They haven't they don't drill down on those things. They're just, that's the price and they pay it. So they have to move their prices to suit. Everybody's adapting in real time to these things. So I think we've got a perfect opportunity right now, is that those things are very much in demand, right? The stories and the narrative of, oh, this product was made by this family's been going for 100 years. They've, revised the ingredients on this, they've iterated that. Here's the legacy. It's a bit like whiskey, right? It's a bit like whiskey. Whiskey's got this whole big narrative of like when it started in the 1800s, and they've had barrels for 300 years. And, like the tour we went on, that what made them unique was the fact that the barrels had seen the test of time. So they had like a security perspective. That, the wood had to be treated in a certain way. There's a qualitativeness about it, which I think can also work in eco, and not be not try and be so dismissive of what's been before it, right? So the packaging that we've always had, like I didn't give a shit about having my kebab in a piece of polystyrene box when I come out of the chippy late at night. I don't care because that product already exists. It exists in the world. It's already been made. What we have to do, or what I'd like to do, is change my behavior,
because
my
everything goes somewhere. That's really the moral of all of this. After it's usually very short time with you
on the product. If it
moves
made
on
me
and
think
it has
that
a whole nother
we weren't
life
just
outside of
continually
you,
adding to the problem. So right.
But yeah.
Especially with a kebab, very short. I mean, I'm a hypocrite because obviously, that food as well is like poorly made and everything else. Like, again, it comes down to behavior and timing and everything. But I think also what happens if you have a shop like that does make that change and puts a sticker on its door. I did this in the top 10 today, which is a complete switcheroo from the 10 everyday like products I find out. I've done it earlier on today, which is like 10 eco products I found in the last week. There's a box in there, which is like exactly what I'm talking about. But I think once that sticker was put on the outside of a cafe to say, hey, we use sustainable packaging now, I think that has that knock-on effect that it brings a different kind of audience to your place. Oh yeah, they do sustainable stuff here. And then also the food will change because the clientele changes. Right. And then automatically the clientele would tell other people about it. Oh yeah, they do vegan food in there, do healthy food. And then all of a sudden you go from being just a business at street level to people who care about your health. Like there's just so many storytelling points you can do there in social. So I'm interested from a Steam DAP perspective of, okay, we've got this product hunted site. we're hunting stuff on there, things that we like, we find are cool, that fit with the guidelines. But I want to just take a little section of that. I want to be the little
I think
section
you hit the nail
deals with
on the head.
eco and
A lot of
sustainability
this
products
stuff,
rather than all the
it is overwhelming.
toys
and that's why it seems overwhelming.
the materialistic things.
I also understand what the human nature component is. That is like, well, who the heck cares? It's literally, it's just one meal. I mean. It's just one this, it's one that, the like the takeaway, the whatever. But I think a lot of this is one of those things where the small incremental changes over time really make a huge difference. And it's not as much, it's exactly like if you wanted to lose weight and you wanted to go on a diet, you wouldn't wake up in the morning and then just work out for 8 hours and then, live on lemon water. It's these small incremental changes that you make to your diet over time to say, okay, I'm choosing this over this. It's like that very, very micro transaction type of mindset. And I think that people just throw in the towel because it's just overwhelming. And it's like, well, what difference is this going to make anyway? But you and I don't live 100% sustainable lives. We don't live perfect. We don't have we don't have negative carbon footprints. I mean, maybe heading toward neutral, but it's like, if you even want to challenge yourself to say, okay, for, right now, I'm just going to stop buying plastic wrap
not at all
food. That's it. That's my only change that I'm going to make for me and my family or whatever. I'm not going to buy plastic wrap or just take one thing and it becomes a part of your life rather than this chore or this guilt or this obligation. It becomes okay, cool. So then once I get into a flow with that, and once that starts feeling good and that makes sense, what's the next thing I can cut out? Okay, I'm going to stop buying cases of bottles of water and I'm going to refill a water bottle. It's just those little things, because I don't think we realize how much we consume and produce. You know what I mean? If a family of 4 has a 36 bottle case of water and they buy it from a big box store once a week, think about what that 36 bottles over 365 days, well, whatever, 52 times a year, for a week. That shit really, 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 really adds up. But I think in the moment of it, we're like, oh, it's just one bottle. But it's the times time quotient that really, really makes a difference. And if we can talk about alternatives and make it kind of a really fun game and discussion of and finding cool alternatives to that stuff, that makes me really stoked, and that makes me feel a little bit less overwhelmed. It makes me feel excited,
That's why I did the little video today with the 10 objects. I definitely feel like and this comes from wanting to find similar styles of people who think like that, because it's all very well developing communities and building communities out. Everybody's going to bring their own opinions and choices and everything to it, history. But actually, as I get older, I'd rather gravitate to people with similar interests who are maybe further down that line than me, that I can learn from. I think it's healthy. To reboot your peers, who your peers potentially are, people who are doing things in a different way, because I think it just sets a precedent in your life to get the most value out of your life, rather than just being happy with, the default, the de facto, just trudging along. And I genuinely get excited when I see somebody has spent the time to re-engineer something to be either more sensible or more useful or have less impact, or I love that somebody has had that moment where they're not happy with something and they wanted to affect a change. I think that's so valuable for the next generation.
We're only being showed a very small portion of the story,
the damage that we've allowed to happen, or big
materials.
corporates have allowed to happen.
Part of the story that we know is
the marketing, the way
it's in the store
the way
now,
they've managed to
and now
sell
it's in
to
my
us,
house,
and
however long it's in my house for, and then after that, it's not my problem. It's not my. I don't know that part of the story. I don't know this part of the story of how it got to me. So it's we get this. We have a very narrow view because of I don't want to blame everything on marketers, but they do kind of suck. Like we have a very narrow percentage of what the story is. So I would love to like you said, kind of not only find those things and share them, but like maybe in the podcast we can have a section where we dive a little bit deeper into fewer products, but really tell the story of like how they're going about it and what the process is,
Yeah, well, what I'd like to do, and the reason why I kind of segued into changing the podcast Product Sense, why I wanted to change it, is that I'd kind of wanted to do a live stream for the longest time, because there's like various new tools out there to allow both people to be on screen at the same time, even though you're like thousands of miles apart, using this thing called NDI, which is a cool little protocol technology. And I couldn't stand the idea of doing just a Ask Me Anything show, because it always ends up about people like upvoting or commenting or like, how do I make the most money and yada, yada, yada. When really the reason, when I strip back everything, the reason why I got involved with Steam Hunt is about products, was my opinion on products. Now, 3 months down the line, I'm reevaluating everything and being like, holy shit, we have a serious problem that is part of the global climate issue, right? I don't know how big a part, but it's still a part, right? And it's behavior and maybe shift, and I haven't got any right to affect that on anybody. But
I also think that it might do well to tell
things that can be made differently,
to kind of prove, like, as a use case, that
stop and consider
there are people
like, is that
who
a better option than that,
are interested in
and is there more value? I think
a lot of people are like, oh well, we could change our boxes as a takeaway, but nobody would pay the extra money. Like I don't know that people. Maybe as people who care about eco stuff, maybe we haven't done a good enough job as consumers being like, yeah, I don't care. Like, I'll pay the extra quarter. I'll pay the extra 25 cents. Like, maybe it could do some use in that area as well. Like, if we can get people kind of talking about eco and kind of prove that there is like interest in that type of stuff, and that there is a market demand. At the end of the day, like, a lot of companies aren't going to change things out of the goodness of their own heart. But if they know that people are passionate about it and they care about it, then they'll make the changes,
Yeah, but you take somebody like Dell, though, right? Dell sell a hell of a lot of server technologies, right? There's data centers all over the world that constantly need servers. They're constantly selling servers. Like, server companies are just like, oh shit, we need more tech, right? Phone up Dell, send us another 100 servers, right?
Now.
Dell realized that they had a problem, that they were spending, when they look at their sustainability breakdown index, which, by the way, all companies are starting to have done now over the last 5 or 10 years. You have to have like a sustainability report. You can't just say like, we're doing really well and the profits are up and the shareholders are good. You have to have a proper, like, you have a team. You have a department that checks how sustainable that business is. Because actually, there's incentives and tax breaks for being in certain places in the world where, if you are doing things in a certain environmental way and you're not damaging the environment around where the big business is, like an Amazon HQ, then you get certain kickbacks, right? So, where was I going with that? Oh, so, right. So Dell looked at their reports and was like, shit, we're spending a hell of a lot of money on custom designed polystyrene server, like wrap, like things that go around the servers. So they ended up, like, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, they ended up coming up with a method of making mycelium based, so mushroom based packaging, which, is incredibly biodegradable. It just, like, they chuck it in a skip and it just like goes to nothing, basically, instead of it has to be like mulched up and sent somewhere else. We don't have a clue how much, like, CHCs or whatever it's called is released from that packaging when it's getting squashed or manipulated or recycled or changed to something else. But I know that goes into the environment, right? So you might as well use something. So they made, And so my point is not only did they probably save money, yes, there was a period of time where they probably had to wait longer to get that packaging because they had to physically grow it into the molds. But then also there's a massive storytelling component for that from a stock holder perspective, you showing that the company is progressive and wants to change with the times, that has such an impact on those kind of business sit down discussion around the round table, if you like. If your company is sustainable and the company across the road isn't, then you're going to attract a whole new clientele who might not even care about sustainability, but they care about you being progressive, right? They're investing in the future of your company. And if you care about the future of where your company sits in the future of the world itself, then there's lots of story points there you can use. So it's not always about that. It's not always about like, oh, this packaging, we'll swap it out for this one because it's sustainable. The story is the bit that oftentimes I think the small businesses miss out on. They just see the price at the cash and carry and like, no, I'm not buying them because we get 100 more or we get 500 more if we buy these cheaper ones. Like the client doesn't matter. Well, at the minute, there's no relationship with the client on that because I come in pissed out my face and get a kebab and walk out. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to be sitting there gushing about, oh, it's so sustainable. And like, it'll break down to, I don't care at that point. Like you have to communicate to me in different ways at different times when my eyeballs are, it might be that my friends are trying to be vegan or they want to eat somewhere where they don't have to worry about those things. They want to have a bigger dialogue about it. I don't know.
Taking part because you are.
I like change. I like change when it's presented like that. There's
nothing more like
it makes me adapt
just apathy
to the world around me, which I think everybody needs to do.
It sucks to feel it, It just not that,
So anyway. Right.
Yeah.
It does. It does. Yeah. And I got to a point with the day to day, like there's an apathy in this where I'm just like, I'm putting it out because I'm used to putting it out. Like, oh, this is what I do for this hour in the morning. Like, this is what, I'm used to doing this. And at some point you have to address that and be like, no, this doesn't feel like it could be something bigger. Whereas when I had to look at the live streaming stuff like a week or so ago, it was like, yeah, this would be great, but it won't be fantastic. It won't be amazing. It won't be like standout. Whereas if I can find 25 people I really respect on the platform, like Topher for one, he always posts like really intriguing, stylish designed products. I would love to have him as one of the community and keep it super hyper focused. So like 25 people who care about these things. And in line with that, I'm using this other service called frame.io where people can send in their little videos that we can use within the clip. So I'm trying to optimize the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm looking at the whole picture and be like, how do I get it so that we plant the seed, but everybody else who comes along in the community is adding the fertilizer and adding the water and building it up and into a framework almost. Because when we get to Review Hunt and all these other little verticals that Steam Hunt's going to like put up, I want to be able to work with some of those companies selling those products, and I want to actively use it. And then I want to have a round table like once every 2 weeks or once a month and say, all right, you've had the product for a month. Let's talk about it. And that would give that company who makes that product such valuable feedback, especially if we had 10 people on the show and every one of those videos could be used as a slow release on their Twitter feed. Oh, this person from, Ohio said it was awesome. This person from England said it was awesome. Or these were the problems. But then they can go back and they can do their R&D version 2. One of the biggest problems that small companies have is liquid funds and the ability to promote themselves. They're the two major things that like suffocate a small business. You can have the best sustainable eco-design products in the world,
and I also
but if
think
nobody's
that there's
hearing
room
about
for
it,
like communities
and if you can't
within
maintain your business expenses, like while you're like doing R&D,
in general,
that in the water. You might as well use what
I see it kind of like as a tree that these things
I've had a big
kind of
intervention
split off and branch off and little pockets form here and there. And I think that's what's awesome about being decentralized is that you can kind of mobilize and self-organize yourselves around the things that you're passionate about. So it's like we have this awesome blockchain technology, so why not use it? I'm excited. I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, more than anything, change was needed, and I've tried to optimize, I guess, my interaction with this and what it could be, because I think the
Yeah.
idea was originally
Right.
like product sense was have some kind of common sense about the things that we own. But if you don't have any education on it or no frame of reference, you know, you're going to buy something, then you're going to let it fail, and then you're going to buy something better, and you're going to let it fail, and you buy something. It's going to just perpetuate. So you might as well like nip it in the bud and being like, okay, you don't necessarily trust my opinion because of X, Y, Z. You don't like this or that, but maybe if you have a room full of people, like all dipping in and being like, oh yeah, it's cool for this, but I
Right.
don't like the color of it, or like
Right.
they
It's
should
the
have
same
used this,
spirit
or
I think that
that's
we've
not really
always had, but
sustainable.
like
Like that,
just in a
that
V2
stuff,
kind of
that's
way. I
real
really
value
think
when
that
people
it's
can then
I
make
think it's
their
like a
big
smart
decision
move, and
based on
I
three
think that
people or four
the
people,
platform itself has been
rather
through
than
so
just
many
somebody at the top
iterations,
of the
and
tree
I
trying to
think
shout to
we were
everybody,
very
this is
concerned
good, you should
in our
buy it.
mod brains in the beginning about being like,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk about what makes a good hunt, what makes a bad hunt, like let's try to like get the quality going there and inspire people. But I feel like this is a V2 of that thought, that kind of hones in on what we're really passionate about, because every week we ended up talking about sustainability anyway, even if it was an indirect way. But this kind of drills that down more, and I think it's going to be a much more potent way to talk about it personally. Right.
Mm. Yeah, I think you can be blue in the face and tell somebody why something's better than something else, and you can end up just like debating it ad nauseum, like over and over and over again, and it still won't necessarily fit some person's agenda of how they want to receive that product in their life. But what you can do is you can do what happens in pubs and bars and social venues all across the world, is that people get together and they, you know, that slowly they like really release as to what how they interact with stuff, and
Right.
might
Just the
even
expectation
break
of having
themselves
something
out of
coming in
like
the mail, like the
a
expectation
product
of it
buying coma
getting
because
to
of it,
you.
you know,
Or
instead
I
of
totally
just,
get that.
I see so many
Totally
people
get
just
that.
like with
It's a trap, and it's an
money that they can
engineered
just
trap
buy
that's been developed over
stuff,
years and
and it's
years.
the
So
frequency of the
it,
stuff which
it
is
plays
keeping
to
them
all of our
entertained, that
most
it's not the
human
product,
like
losing sight of that.
sensibilities. It's a very engineered system. I'm not going to get like,
Mm, mm.
into my conspiracy theories, but there's an
It's
intention behind
top.
it. There's a reason why it's easy. Why it's easy to buy things, because a lot of people make a lot of money over the fact that they can figure out that it's easy for you to buy things. So it takes a little bit of self awareness to
Oh no, we're not doing that.
break out of that, but it's worth it. I think it's definitely worth it. Yeah,
There you go. Mm. So I'm excited for that. And I kind of just wanted to get that off my chest today. I know we're behind with the product sense, but tomorrow we're back to our normal
awesome.
positively negative, and then we're going to do another one on Thursday of product sense, which probably I'll talk a little bit more about the theming of the live stream, and I'm also going to talk about the storage that we're going to use, because I think this is all going to cross over and be super, super efficient. Actually, it's going to become like the media storage of bigger collaborations, but also feeds into the live stuff. And then hopefully we can build something out that if people want to have their own little niche show, maybe you're into drones, maybe you're into like garden furniture, like whatever it is, like if
I
you
like
have a
that.
particular thing and you're
Centralized tools
collecting
for
hundreds of them,
decentralized
then maybe we can
implementation
make you a theme and you
in
can
a
go off
way.
and put
I
your own
like
show
that. I
out
really
there,
like
like,
that.
and we can
I don't
help you
think we're
build
going
a
to get
theme
better
around
than
it.
that.
I think there's something to be said for centralized intention, but in a
Yeah, no
decentralized way.
problem. See you later, guys.
Yeah. And I'm going to close. No, I'm going to close the show out. Thanks for being with me. Bye. Bye.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Subscribe with Pocket Casts and get notified right away.
And if you use Anchor FM, feel free to call in and leave us a message. We try and reply in our next cast.
If you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to anchor.fm/productsense.
And if you'd like to hang out with us on Discord, there's a link on that page as well. We'll speak to you soon.